The law enforcement community is still coming to grips with the loss of a brother in blue. Officer Darian Jarrott was shot and killed following a traffic stop near Deming on I-10. The father of three was expecting another child later this year. This is video from Albuquerque. Officers lining the streets to honor Officer Jarrott as his body arrived at the medical investigator's office. According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Officer Jarrott was assisting HSI agents in an enforcement operation in Deming. A spokesperson says it was related to an ongoing narcotics investigation. Now, the man who shot Officer Jarrott is identified as Omar Cueva. He was killed in a shootout with police after he left the Deming area and led officers to Las Cruces. Officials describing him as a, quote, violent criminal. According to the New Mexico State Police Chief, it was believed Cueva was heading to a drug deal at the time he was stopped by Jarrott. Officer Jarrott is being escorted from Albuquerque back to Deming. New Mexico State police officers are assisting with escorting their fallen brother. ABC7's Kate Beria is in Deming and will be following the route as they arrive. She'll join us live with complete coverage on ABC7 at 10. News of Jarrett's death tugging on the heartstrings of so many in southern New Mexico, but his hometown of Lordsburg is truly heartbreaking. This image out of Lordsburg, ABC7's Brianna Chavez spoke with community members about losing one of their own. She reports from our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom.
I'm here at the Lordsburg Memorial Park where all of these flags are at half-staff. And the emotions here in this community are raw as they mourn the loss of one of their own.
It hurt me because, you know, it's a small community here in Lordsburg.
This man put all of these flags at half-staff Friday, just one of several memorials placed in honor of 28-year-old state police officer Darian Jarrott.
It's a small community. The population isn't very big, but the connectivity is huge.
Gerald O'Donnell says he only met Jarrott a few times, but felt the need to add this white cross to a memorial that sits in the heart of the town.
A lot of people don't realize what they do is more dangerous than anything out there because they're put in a more dangerous situation.
Jarrott, raised in Lordsburg, being remembered as a hometown hero.
He played on the state championship football team, was known all around this community as a fun-loving team player who really went above and beyond to make people feel special and make people feel safe.
The news of Jarrett's death bringing people like Ana Maria Campos to tears.
I knew him as a little boy. Always that smile. I knew his mom and dad, the grandpa, the other family.
There are no words that can be said that'll take away the pain. It's a community that is very much mourning right now because they are part of who he was and a part of who he will continue to be.
In the heart of Lordsburg are these fire trucks dedicated to Officer Darian Jarrott in honor of his life, in love and appreciation for what he did. On the windshield behind me, it reads, Darian R. Jarrott, end of watch, February 4th, 2021. Thank you for your service. In Lordsburg with our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom, Brianna Chavez, ABC7.
All right, Brianna, and I do want to clarify what you see here is actually the memorial that was set up on I-10 near Deming at the scene of where Officer Jarrott was shot and killed. Of course, where Brianna was out in Lordsburg in his hometown. Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales told Brianna that he met with Jarrett's family and says they are heartbroken, including his fiancée who's pregnant with his fourth child. But they are grateful for the community's support, and the family is working on funeral arrangements. And once we have that information, we'll update you on air and online at kvi.com. Our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom also spoke with former Governor Susana Martinez. Martinez comes from a background of law enforcement. Her father was an officer, and now she says her son is also in law enforcement. She says she's heartbroken for Officer Jarrett's family, and she knows how stressful those days can be just waiting for your loved one to come home.
When I heard the news yesterday, I mean, everything just, your heart sinks. May God wrap his arms around them during this difficult time, which will not end with simply laying him to rest, because there's so much of a challenge for those little ones who no longer have their father to walk in that front door.
Officer Darian Jarrott was working with Homeland Security when he pulled over Omar Felix Cueva. ABC7 Civil Science asked New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham if her office is investigating if Officer Jarrott was put in harm's way when he was shot and killed. All right, it appears as though we do not have that available for you right now, so we can move on now to first forecast with Doppler Dave Spielman, who's standing by with a look at storm track weather. Doppler.
Yeah, you know, we had a nice day all in all today. Here's the wind gusts. The winds were up, kind of low and windy, and some moderate winds up here at Powell. 37-mile-an-hour gusts. Texas Tech came in with 32, and temperatures across the region, they're still pretty decent out there right now. We're 65, 60 in Las Cruces. We have 58 up in Deming. Notice the mountains. We're 40s up in Ruidoso and Cloudcroft out there in Sierra Blanca and Van Horn still in the 60s. We have a nice night for the most part. I mean, the winds will remain up a bit. So if you're going to be heading out, to certainly have the jacket. The winds will have more of a bite to it. We'll talk about your Saturday and Sunday. The weekend does look good, and I think the nicest day will arrive in here on Super Bowl Sunday, but we'll talk more about that coming up in the weather.
All right, Doppler, we did work out the technical difficulties a moment ago, so our own cell signs just spoke within the last hour and a half or so with the current New Mexico governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, about Officer Jarrett's death on I-10, the killing on I-10, and whether or not he was put in harm's way assisting HSI in that investigation.
Look, every time we lose anyone, and particularly an officer trained to deal with these high-risk issues, it requires and demands our attention and a full investigation. I know that the Department of Public Safety, working closely with our own Department of Homeland Security and our federal partners, are going over those details with a fine-tooth comb, and we're going to have to wait and see what they find out. But that anger, right, and outrage is just also that these men and women and their families sacrifice so much for us every day in public safety. Violent crime and crime that may have, touch many communities, 2 countries potentially, a couple of states. These they demand our attention in very direct ways. And I do want to make sure that every single partner, including our federal partners, are doing what they're supposed to do. So I think it's premature to have an opinion about that, but I expect the full effort of all of our partners to get to the bottom of this and all accountability issues to be addressed in full.
So do you think that this unfortunate incident, or at least that it should be looked at, that will lead to some changes to protect our law enforcement or New Mexico law enforcement officers? Do you think some changes will be needed after all this is investigated?
So I don't know, but you raise a very important point. Every time, these losses are tragic. They are horrific for the communities and the families, frankly, the entire community of the state police. And I know this happens in other police forces. We know we haven't had an issue like this in 30 years. We haven't lost an officer in the line of duty. We had a helicopter crash in New Mexico about 9 years ago, in 2009. This loss is felt, right? The ripple effect in the police department, they're a family, all dedicated to public safety. This really requires, and they always do, a deep dive look at how can we make our families and our officers safer. If we don't do that, when we peel away the layers to look at what's happening, we aren't doing our jobs. Our families and our other officers, right, deserve that we are taking a look at that. So my expectation is whatever we learn, if there needs to be policy adjustments, we should be making those as quickly as we can.
Okay. And have you met with Officer Jarrett's family, and what did you say?
I didn't meet with them, but I phoned everyone. I did 2 things that these are horrible calls for governors or policymakers to make, because this family is grieving in ways that you and I really understand. And that pain, you want to both be respectful, and you also want them to know that you represent that a whole state mourns with them, and that you want to do everything you can to minimize, right, how hard this situation is.